was the very lovely Councillor Simon Clement Jones stealing my thunder. Right, welcome everybody to this very strange experience of all being in the same room together after, I guess it's 18 months of being on Zoom. And just as we'd all mastered that and knew how to do it, here we are and having to pick up old tricks again. So we'll start housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if it does go off, it will be real, and we follow the green signs to get out. I think it'll be that way rather than that way. The toilets, the gentlemen's are around the corner there, and for ladies it's further around the corner, the corridor there. Are there any other housekeeping-y things, or was that it? Right, sorry, these are the new things again. I know we all came in our masks. When we're walking around, we should put our masks on. It's only when we're sitting in one place that we will be able to remove our masks and find out who we really are. It's a bit like the masked singer and dancer, isn't it? This is the masked counsellor. Okay, so if we, first of all, we'll all go round and introduce ourselves, and we'll go clockwise. So we'll start with Alison.
Hi everyone, new experience for me. My first physical meeting since I was appointed more than a year ago. So my name's Alison Howard and I'm the independent member.
Thank you.
I'm Councillor Simon Clement Jones, Councillor Beecham Greenhill, and also Deputy Chair of this committee. Oh, true, I was the Deputy Chair of this committee, thank you.
Councillor Mohammed Maroof, Councillor for Crooks and Crosspool.
Councillor Josie Pasha, Councillor for Hillsborough. Thank you, good afternoon.
And one of our new members.
Hiya, Councillor David Barker, Councillor for Richmond. Just nodded off. I'm back again now. Thank you.
Can't understand it. This is an exciting meeting.
Councillor Angela Argenta for Broomhill and Sharvale.
And another new member.
Yes, Councillor Ben Curran, Councillor for Walkley.
Thank you. So that's all of the members and our independent member. We also have some officers with us. So
Linda Hunter, Senior Finance Manager, Internal Audit, Risk Management and External Funding for the Council.
Thank you.
Hello, Gillian Duckworth, Director of Legal and Governance and the Council's Statutory Monitoring Officer.
Hi everyone, David Phillips, Head of Strategic Finance at the Council.
Hello, I'm Sarah Cottam, I'm the Democratic Services Officer for this meeting.
And in front of me, who you can't see, is the really important person holding this meeting together with all the cameras and the microphones, and that's Jay. So thank you, everybody. This is a bit weird sitting up here in splendid isolation, isn't it? Maybe for the next meeting we can find a better way of being able to sit sufficiently socially distanced, but without me having to sit up here like Queen Victoria. And so with that, we'll move on to item 2, which is to note the appointment of the chair of the committee for this year, which is me, and that was done at the last full council meeting. And now I would like to take nominations so that we can appoint a deputy chair of the committee for the municipal year 2021-22. Would anybody like to nominate anybody?
Chair, I would like to nominate Councillor Simon Clement Jones.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Yeah, I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Right. Can we please vote to accept Councillor Simon Clement Jones as the Deputy Chair for this year? Oh, unanimous. Oh, one abstention. Congratulations, Simon, and looking forward to working with you again this year. So, item 3, apologies for absence.
I've got no apologies, Chair.
No, I think everybody's here for the first meeting. So, item 4, exclusion of the press and public. I don't believe we have any items for that.
None at the moment, Chair.
Thank you. Item 5, any declarations of interest for this particular meeting? No. Okay, so we'll move on to item 6, which is the minutes of the previous meeting on the 22nd of April. Can I go through them for accuracy? Page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14. Can we accept these as a true record? Will somebody please move? Moved and seconded. Thank you, Angela. So we've accepted the minutes. And I understand we don't do matters arising from our minutes. Is that right? Unless somebody... I can think of some way of doing it if anybody has a matter they want to arise from these minutes. No? Okay. So, in that case, we're on to item 7, which is our committee's terms of reference. So that can be found on page 15 onwards. I don't believe anything has changed, has it, Gillian?
No, Chair, not that I'm aware of.
So these are the terms of reference to which we work. I'm just going to pick up on page 20, 22. As we're all aware on this committee, there is a long-standing complaint which is currently going through the machinery, and there has been a wee bit of concern that it is trundling through and is a bit tardy. So I've spoken to the leader, and I also raised it at our pre-meeting with the colleagues from the other parties, and we've agreed that we will ask our monitoring officer just to have a sort of look at our procedures for dealing with complaints against councillors, and see whether there is any way in which we could have improved them in this case, or indeed in any other case. And I'm assuming that when this case has been concluded, we will have a lessons learned discussion about it as well. So is that okay with everybody else that we should do this? Thank you, and thank you, Gillian. So can we agree that these are our terms of reference for the year? Yeah? Okay. So moving on, our next report, it's by Stephen Bauer, but I believe Linda is going to speak to this report and Angela is going to ask all the questions. Oh yes, everybody else can, but at our pre-meeting, Angela had really studied it and was hugely impressive. So there you go. No pressure, Ben.
The puzzled look on my face was I wasn't aware of a pre-meeting, so apologies if I've
No. It's a pre-meeting for the chair and the vice chair. Yeah. So with that, can we move on to item 8, Linda?
Thank you, Chair. The last report to do with counter-fraud was presented to the committee January 21. So this follows on from that, and it outlines the fraud and corruption work that the team have done for 2021. But then also we've included the work programme for 21-22. And just highlight some key areas for you. We've done some reactive work for 2021. So that included conducting 8 reactive investigations, but also assisting management with 13 further reactive investigations. And then we also concluded a further 12 investigations. So quite a number of investigations we undertook last year. And following on from any investigation, we still report to management any action. So we still look for ways of improving our controls and processes. The report also includes some reactive work to do with the COVID pandemic. So, for example, we put in there a review we've done about the use of credit cards, and then also about the PPE procurement and the recharging of that to the South Yorkshire authorities. And we still need to take the statutory National Fraud Initiative, the NFI role, and we met all the deadlines for that for submitting the data. So, yeah, we achieved that. Housing tenancy and right to buy fraud, that's not undertaken by internal audit, that's undertaken by the housing services, but we've included some details that we've got from our colleagues in the report on that. Just to give you an example, for 2021 they had 155 new cases, 16 properties were recovered and 11 were handed back, so yeah, we've got some productive work there. We've included something that's sort of quite topical at the moment, is the bank mandate fraud. Again, you've probably been involved in there's been a number of phishing emails and texts that people are getting through, and the council have been involved in that as well. So we've had a number of where we've had an email from a supposed company, which is one of our suppliers, asking to change the bank details. I mean, luckily, we've got processes and systems in place to help prevent anything going through, any changes. So we actually check to independent records and source data. In there as well, we've got a section about whistleblowing. Now, we've put in there it remains low. What we need to do on that is promote the whistleblowing policy throughout the council. So what we're doing, we're going to relaunch that along with the fraud e-learning that's now live on the Learning Hub, and that's available both to members and to officers. So that'll be shortly. And as far as 21-22 goes, we're now planned, we've got proactive work still, we've got investigation work, we've got the NFI still, and then we've also got an annual review of the housing benefit process. So overall, the counter-fraud for the plan that was approved in April 21, it's about 18% of the resources that we used for investigations and fraud work. And then at the back of the report, we've got an Appendix A that we've called a checklist, and that's for those responsible for governance. And again, we've had comments about that, and what we're going to do next time is, at the moment we've got yes, no, but we know that some of the yeses are sort of, they meet the minimum requirements, but there's ways of enhancing some of the controls there. So what we are going to do is look at the next report, do a red, amber, green. So we'll look at making some improvements for that. So what I'm asking the committee for is 3 recommendations in here. It's to note the content of the report, to note the checklist, which is Appendix A, and then also we have reviewed the council's policies in relation to fraud and corruption, and we feel that they fulfil the requirements, so just to note that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Linda. On the question of whistleblowing, we are having a report on the whole policy, I believe, at a future meeting, so we'll have a big discussion about whistleblowing at that meeting. And thank you for taking up comments that were made at the pre-meeting. Angela, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Linda, very much for that, and thank you for taking some of the comments I made yesterday, particularly regarding the format of the appendix and the traffic light system. I think it would be useful for future reports just to make them a bit more suitable for us to have time frames when we have, for example, number 10 on page 24. It would be good to have some kind of idea of a time frame for that to be kind of completed, and same in 17 about housing benefit and tax, the transfer from capita and how long those processes will take. And then particularly, I think number 18, we had this at the meeting, I think it was back in January, where we were talking about grants that had been given out and shouldn't have been given out either because people had applied for the wrong thing, but because the emphasis at the beginning of the pandemic was to just get the money out to people as quickly as possible. So it would be good to know of that money that was outstanding that shouldn't have been given out, how much is still outstanding?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll take that on board. So like in future what we'll do is we'll make sure we put the time frames in the report just to give you an idea. But for example, for like the COVID grants, the NFI exercise we've just done for that, that only came through 2 weeks ago, so that's why it's still outstanding and we're still waiting for that. So, but yeah, we can quote where we're at on any of the time frames. And for the point, like I just mentioned on point 18, where we've put January 21, there was 300,000 that was outstanding. What they've done is they've recovered virtually almost all of that 300,000, but obviously we've made more payments, grant payments since. So, and they've identified since then another set of overpayments totaling roughly around 300,000 again. So it's gone back up to 300,000, but again they're pursuing and trying to recover that. So it's gone sort of up and down, but yeah, it remains at 300,000, but some of that had been recovered, quite a bulk of that had been recovered.
Yeah, sorry. You've answered some of the things I asked yesterday anyway. So, yes, it would be interesting to know how, we know that the whistleblowing policy is coming to this committee during the year, but it would be interesting to know how staff and even councillors are made aware of the policy and how people are reminded. And also at number 8 on page 37 in the appendix, the risk of fraud. I was saying this at the pre-meeting that I don't remember anything being, given to us as new members in terms of how to spot it, what to do. So it would be good to have like some kind of how it's done now and how you catch up on people who have been here for a while. And also about, there is the insurance for against employees' dishonesty. I was just wondering whether there are many instances. I know we have to have insurance, but does it happen and how widespread is it? Or is it just something that we have to have because, we have to?
Yeah, just to answer that last point first, yeah, we have to have it, but I'm not aware of any instances at the moment, but yeah, we do need that insurance, yeah. And for the whistleblowing, what we're going to do on that is, like I say, it's in the officer's code of conduct, but again, somebody might have had that 15, 20 years ago, so we do need to refresh that and put it in people's foreminds. So it's on the intranet, stuff to refer to, but again, you've got to know where it is or search the intranet to find that. So that's why we've put it now in the fraud e-learning on the development hub. So there is a section on whistleblowing in there now. And then also we're going to launch the fraud e-learning and the whistleblowing policy. We're going to launch that with an email to all staff. So hopefully we will catch up and remind people about the policy, doing it that way.
Thank you.
And could that also go to all councillors, please? Thank you. Oops, Ben? You had some questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The first one, actually, I just want to follow up on that we have to have insurance for staff dishonesty, because we self-insure as a council for so many other things, which is basically just a way of avoiding sort of paying premiums because we view it to be cheaper. Could we not do the same with this area that we would, most places would typically have insurance for? And my other two questions, I did send to Stephen Bauer in advance by email, who has responded to me via Linda, but in the interest of transparency, I thought I'd just ask them here anyway, so that they're in the public record and not just in emails. So the first was if we knew what the total amount lost by SCC to fraud was over the last year, and the second was what was the value that Sheffield City Council retained due to prevention work over the course of last year.
Thank you, Councillor Curran. Yeah, in answer to your first question about insurance, I will follow that up and make sure that we do need the insurance. I will follow that up with the insurance officer. And then in response to your first question, it is difficult for us to put an amount on, the value of fraud that we've actually dealt with. I can give you an example for that. For example, like blue badges, there's no monetary value to a blue badge if people have used it fraudulently. But obviously the council's lost income, so there's loss of income from parking there. But again, it's hard to put a value on that. We don't really know how often that person would have used that blue badge. So it is difficult. And it's also difficult as to what we define as fraud. Because I know for DWP, when they do their investigations for the housing benefits, a lot of theirs is classed as errors rather than fraud. So again, it's going to be hard to quantify. But what we will do in this report in future is, like the housing tenancy, I think I made a note here, paragraph 44, it mentions about 270,000 recovered for the cases for the housing tenancy. So where we do have a value and we can quantify it, in future we'll make sure we'll quote those amounts in there. And then second question, again about the value from prevention. That again, it's difficult to put an amount on that. Because again, we've got processes in place, for example, to stop a grant payment going through or a payment going through, a false payment. That could be an error on the form, it could be a fraudulent case, but we've stopped it. So at that point, we haven't made any payments. So again, there's no value to that, but we do get a number of those going through and recording. So, but say where we can quantify something, we'll make sure we put that in future. But to say it's difficult for both of those to put a value to it.
I'd use that. Okay, thank you both. We'll move over to Simon.
Thank you, Chair.
And Maruth.
So page 31, paragraph 459, just the National Fraud Initiative. I just wanted to kind of see if I could get a little bit more detail from you. Obviously, the government have been asking us about the quality of our data. I mean, if you could give me an idea of what the quality of the data is we're getting back and kind of what format that comes in terms of obviously 10,000 is a lot. You're not going to be investigating that many. Kind of how many of those go on to the initial investigation, if you like, and then of those, that are investigated, what sort of percentage turn out to be something rather than nothing, and what sort of audit do you do on those 10,000 broken down into those, you see what I mean, to see if you're investigating the right things at the right time out of those 10,000. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we do get, like you say, we get the NFI data matches we get back, but it's up to the service. We leave it to the service areas to follow those through. But we monitor that and chase it, and then they might refer some to us, like you say, to investigate further. But, for example, you do get a number of, for example, like the blue badges, where a blue badge has been used and we've matched it that the person has deceased. So, but again, sometimes once they've done the investigation in the service area, it might not be that that's a potential fraud. It could be just to delay the relatives notifying us that they've actually deceased and handing the blue badge back. So they don't always lead to, potentially they do look like matches for fraud, but once we start to investigate into them, it isn't a fraud. I haven't got the figures to know the percentage-wise, but I can find that out for you and circulate that.
Yeah, thank you very much. We like numbers on Audit Committee.
Yeah.
Sorry, just before Maruth leaps in, just thinking of something that Simon said there. When you register a death, you have a tell me once policy. Could blue badges be added to that?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. There was discussions that was going to be added, so I'm not sure if it actually has been added now. So I'll check that out, because I say it should have, I know it was discussions about being added, so I'd like to say that just tells you once and it's covered a number of angles, yeah.
Thank you. Maruth, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. My questions are particularly around the housing tenancy fraud. I think I remember asking this question quite some time ago, and I think, if I'm not correctly, I was told that this was quite insignificant housing tenancy fraud. But I might have got it wrong, Chair. I might have asked it in a different format, and I'm still remembering it from that, but it may well have been in Audit Committee. Do we actually benchmark against other authorities? That's one question. Any fraud is significant, and obviously, clearly, it deprives people of accommodation, which is sorely needed in this city. and therefore even one, in my opinion, is too many. So why is it then when they do hand the keys back, and I understand the rationale behind it, which is that the local authority doesn't want to incur unnecessary costs when somebody's handed the keys back. But isn't that giving impunity to to prosecution to people who have actually handed the keys back? Because the message that sends out for me is, if you get caught, just hand the keys back and you can walk away from it, having gained some beneficial financial gain from it. I think we should have a zero tolerance policy, Chair. And another question from me is, how well resourced is the team in housing fraud? Are we missing large numbers of potential fraudulent tenancies, and in particular sublettings? Because that could be pretty difficult to determine how many people are actually subletting their properties or subletting multiple sublettings. I think I've been watching too many panorama programs, so do forgive me, Chair. So that is another question from me. And in terms of what happens when you do detect tenancy fraud, in particular around sublettings, what rights, I mean, you may not be able to answer this question, but what rights are actually afforded to the subtenants? Because they've presumably gone into this arrangement not knowing the fact that they're entering into an illegal arrangement. And possibly they're being exploited. And in some cases, they probably will be living in substandard properties. And when we do get these properties back, sometimes you may well get properties coming back to us where the subtenants are still in situ, which basically means that they become our responsibility in some ways. That in itself is another big issue, because housing is very sensitive in terms of a roof over people's heads. So those are the number of questions that I've got, Chair. One other one is more of an internal issue, and I'm sure this is actually covered, but I need to raise it just to satisfy myself here. I mean, in terms of right to buy valuations, do you carry out a random sample check of the valuations that are actually done by the local authority, that they are in line with market values? I'm sure they are, but in other business environments where valuation is an issue, they are sometimes randomly checked by somebody else to see that we're actually following a tone of valuation rather than not. I'm not saying that I know something that I don't. I just think that is a good industrial practice, and whether that is actually carried out, and presumably that will fall under the remit of audit as well. Sorry, Chair, I've asked a lot of questions there, but if you do want any clarification in any of them, then I'm more than happy to come back in again. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. As far as the housing tenancy goes and the number of staff in that section, I don't supervise that section as part of the housing service, so I can't give you a number on that. But what I can do is find out for you. So, yeah, so it isn't. And like I say about the zero tolerance policy, I'm not sure what policy they've got in place as to whether or not it is zero tolerance, and, you know, we're not reletting them. So I will find out that as well. And then what was the first one about?
The first one was around, I think, as I said, I might have asked this question before, I can't remember, but I was told it was quite insignificant, the number of tenancy frauds.
Yeah,
and this year they've risen quite considerably.
Yeah.
Do we benchmark against other local authorities? Not to say that if other local authorities are a lot worse than us, then we can say we're better, because I think we should have a zero tolerance policy anyway. But do we actually do that with the other big six Mets rather than just borough councils?
Yeah, I can ask again. I'll ask the question about benchmarking, because, like I say, we do try and promote people to do benchmarking and look at the best value and ways of improving the service. So yeah, I'll ask that question as well. So I'll ask about benchmarking, the staffing levels, and then about the zero tolerance policy. So yeah, sorry, I can't answer those ones, but yeah, I will find out for you.
Chair, can I just say that a lot of the questions that you're coming back to back to us with the answers, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to have the housing tenancy teams or somebody to report back to us at some stage as a work in the future.
I think probably like Stephen Bauer, who deals with the counter fraud, he liaises with the housing tenancy team anyway, so he does liaise with them, so he would probably know the answers to that. It's just unfortunate he can't be here today, but what I can do, if he doesn't know the answers to this, then yeah, it is an option that we get somebody from that team to, yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Obviously, when you send the responses to Councillor Maroof, if all of us on the committee can be copied in. I was very pleased actually to see on number 47 on page 29 that we're doing some joint work with the local police and also some plans to work with the university, because I've read it in the Star, so it must be true, about quite a few overseas students who've had fraudulent sublettings that they thought they've got a good deal and they haven't. So I'm glad we're going to be working on that, because obviously students coming to Sheffield deserve to be protected by us from such things. And finally, I would just say, hang on page 32, number 67, it just says we have a zero tolerance of any sort of fraud. So I think that's your answer there, Maroof, which is good to know. So are there any other questions? And if not, one will thank Linda for stepping in. And can we agree the recommendations, the 3 recommendations which we have on the report? Is that lots of nodding? Okay. Yeah, if we were on screen, we'd all be putting our thumbs up now, wouldn't we? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that item. And we'll move on to, where are we? Item 9. External assessment, peer review terms of reference. Is that you again, Linda?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yep. This is a terms of reference that outlines the programme of work. That it's about an internal self-assessment that I will be undertaking, and then will be validated by an external reviewer. So what we've done this year, we've grouped together with Core Cities, and it'll be Birmingham City Council that'll be undertaking our external review. Last time we did this was 5 years ago, and it was Leeds City Council that did the independent review. It's all part of this new, it's called the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards. It was introduced 5 years ago. So it's a requirement, which is like Councillor Maroof just mentioned about benchmarking. This is a good way of us benchmarking our service and what we offer as an audit service. So the terms of reference, it outlines that it's a supportive role as well. So because we selected Birmingham City Council, they could actually share some documents with us that we might not have in place, or even we could improve our own documents. So for example, the Internal Audit Charter, they might provide us with their charter and I can compare it and make some improvements to ours. So it's all very positive way of assessing our service. Just to give you a bit of background, for those of you that went here 5 years ago, we got the highest assessment last time, which was generally conforms, and that was their highest assessment. But we still had 10 areas of non-conformance. So say it's, even though it sounds high, there was over 350 areas that you assessed against. So to be fair, 10, if you compared against the numbers that they're assessing, it's pretty small. What they will be doing though, they'll be interviewing the Chief Exec, the Section 151 officer, and then also the chair of this committee as well. They'll be asking you, again, they're only going to ask you about the audit service. Do you think there's any improvements? And yeah, and get your view on this. So you will expect a call from them at some point.
Strangely, you didn't mention this when we went through the report the other day.
No, so. But all very harmless, apparently. So. And what we've done, Dave Phillips is the Deputy Section 15 officer. We've selected Dave as the sponsor for this review as well. So, but you will still Dave will get a copy of the report and the opinion, but also I'll bring it back to this audit committee as well. So you'll get a copy of it. And then also it will go to Eugene Walker as a Section 151 officer. So what we're asking for is actually if you can endorse the terms of reference, and then I will contact Birmingham, start getting together. I'll do my self-assessment against all the questions, and then it's a matter of providing them with evidence, and then they'll go through it. It's all done remotely because obviously the current situation, so there'll be no visit from them. And like I say, the discussion they have with you would all be remotely via a Teams meeting. So, and then also just to agree that Dave will be the sponsor. So.
Are there any questions? Ben?
Making myself popular at my first meeting. So I want to preface this by saying
I
I
really like
worked...
people asking questions. It means they're taking part and are recognising it's a serious committee. Thank you, Ben.
I want to preface this just by saying I worked very closely with our finance team for 4.5 years, and they have been sort of above reproach and absolutely exemplary. But I always have a natural scepticism of peer review. If this was a proposal of banks to monitor themselves, one bank to say whether another one was acting fine, or one media outlet doing a judgment on another to say whether their performance was fine, we would rightly be concerned. We would say there should be some banking regulation, someone external doing it. We should say that there'd be press regulation, someone external looking at it. And there is. But when it comes to ourselves, we seem to be saying that it's okay for us to mark our peers rather than have someone external. So I guess what reassurance can you give us that there's not going to be, that this will be the toughest and most robust report and process that it can be, rather than just something cheaper with our mates?
I think there used to be something called the Audit Commission, which was abolished a couple of governments ago, and they would have made sure that they were a rigorous outsider. Since then, I think the Local Government Association have particularly pressed for peer reviews, and I haven't noticed anybody being matey with any other councils when they think that they need to be pulled up about things. So I'm not particularly worried about that. It's actually a question I'd like David to answer rather than Linda, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I recognise the point you're making, Ben, that unlike you, I at times get rather worried when organisations like the press regulate themselves and have some doubts as to how well that works. I think in terms of internal audit colleagues and chief internal auditors at other large core cities, they are pretty big, scary beasts, so they tend to do a fairly robust review of people doing that. The council did look and cost of how much it would cost to have external reviews of internal audit, but it is significantly more expensive, and that was a factor in this. And as Linda says, it gives an opportunity to share practice between people. But the discussion we had yesterday was that having done this twice internally, it might well be that when we come to look to it again, it might be time to have an external review. And we can get people like external audit firms to review our internal audits. Unfortunately, it's not cheap, is the answer. So this time we opted for internal review. But taking your point that it's certainly something we need to keep under scrutiny.
I think the other thing I'd say is that internal auditors, you have your own code, I was going to say code of honour, but it's a code of conduct about the way that you do conduct yourselves in terms of being scrupulously beastly to anybody who needs it.
Yeah, and we're also, like I say, we're all members of different professional bodies as well, so we've got independence and accountability to that, and code to adhere to, so yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, just to say, I didn't realise it was 5 years actually, but I was the person that did the review with Leeds 5 years ago. And, you know, they don't just sort of pop in and look at things, they do actually treat it like they would do an audit, and they put in a significant amount of work, and it was a proper review at the end of it. I remember it was up in the committee room 5. I absolutely didn't, it's amazing that it's 5 years, but yeah, it was taken very seriously, and there was a lot of work done, and there was a lot of preparation in going in when you were getting the feedback from Leeds and giving them, and when you were going in to talk to them, it was taken very, very seriously. So it definitely wasn't a lightweight review at all. Thank you.
Sorry, and finally, I would just say that in the same way that we think we'll be able to learn something, or perhaps from Birmingham, it may be because where are we? We're going off to review Nottingham, or staying here to review them by desk, that there may be good practice they have that we can also pick up from them. So
That's going to be, it'll be me that will be undertaking the review for Nottingham, and that's going to be later in the year. So yeah, similar, we'll share best practice with them. So yeah.
okay. Do you feel assured by that, Ben?
I do, Chair, I do.
No, if you didn't, I don't want you to sort of...
No, so audit people are very much a different type to a banker or a press person, which I do know, and I'm reassured by sort of Dave's view that we could get someone external if we felt we needed to, and you know, that's a sort of answer expected. I didn't expect everyone to pile in that way, but I am definitely reassured, Chair.
Right, okay, so Councillor Pashek and I are official pilers-inners now. And with that, can we accept this report, please? Thank you. So our next report is number 10, which is the report that is about the conclusion of the external audit. And as I said to Dave, when I saw this report, I wrote hooray on it because it's been such a long process.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've taken this report here that concludes the, so I'm having to get used to talking to the microphone, the 1920 external audit of our accounts. Exactly as the Chair says, it has been a long process which various members of the committee have lived and breathed for the past year or so. But for those that are newer, we'd normally expect our external audit to be concluded sooner than now. The deadline was moved later in response to COVID, but even then the deadline was the end of November last year. The auditors have missed that, not just here, but in a large number of places. And I looked just before the meeting, as at the end of December, there were 202 out of 478, or 42% of the audits not completed by the end of December. And a large proportion of those will be the larger, more complex audits. For those people that stay on the committee and here for a bit, there has been a lot of reporting in the press about the issues facing external audit at the moment and the challenges. There have been a series of review, the Redmond review in public sector, the Kingman review, the Competition and Markets Authority, etc. All of them pointing out various flaws in the conduct of audits and the regulation of them. That's had a very significant impact on external audit nationally. They found it difficult to recruit and retain enough people to carry out their audits, and COVID has made that even worse. So they've been sort of behind the game all year, it's fair to say, in terms of completing work, and frankly remain behind where they need to be for this year as well. So I think this problem is not going to go away. Well, I don't think, I know this problem is not going to go away going into the audit of this year as well. So those negative comments aside, it is good news. We have finished off last year's audit. So in terms of your responsibilities, when you read the certificate signed off by the external auditor, that should give you a good deal of assurance there. We've got a true and fair view on our accounts. We've got an unqualified opinion there. We've got a conclusion that we're prepared properly, and we've got a clear conclusion on our value for money opinion. So that's all good and enables us to draw a line under that. We're now already getting into the period where we're preparing our accounts for this year, and under normal circumstances we would have expected external audit to be in, and have done quite a lot of preparatory work in February, March time, a bit before the year end close down. None of that work has been done this year, so they'll be coming in cold in July. And although the statutory deadline for the completion of the audits is September this year, they've already said that they are likely to be late, and it will be later this year, and I've got my fingers crossed that it is later this year and not into 2022 before the audit gets done. We were hoping that the external auditors would be here tonight to tell you this in person, which would have been handy. Unfortunately, they hadn't realised that the meeting was in person, and then by the time they realised that, they couldn't get it into their diaries, so that they're not. But they have promised to turn up in person for the next meeting and talk to you as necessary. And they'll be presenting their annual audit letter then as well, which will re-summarise in a shorter format the 50-page memo on the accounts that they gave you, which again gave a lot of clear and positive news. As usual, gave some helpful areas where we can improve things and areas where we can get things better. But the annual audit letter should come here, so you should be able to see that. I got that literally this morning, so I'm going through it at the moment, and we've got meetings on it tomorrow and Monday. So good news, last year's audit is done, but there's a lot of work going forward in terms of external audit and challenges to keep on getting it, well, to get it back to on track, which the external auditors have said they think will take 2 years. So that's this year and next year before we're back where we should be, fingers crossed.
Thank you, Dave. Can you also comment on the email which you and Eugene received this afternoon or this morning from the people who organised the scheme for audit? Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. As the Chair says, and we shared with the Chair, we got an email this morning from Public Sector Audit Appointments. They are, for those of you that don't know, the people that appoint our external auditors. We've always had a system in the public sector whereby external auditors aren't appointed by the audited body, they're appointed by a separate body. And the aim of that is to increase their independence. And my personal view is that is one of the flaws in the audit system in the private sector, that it's too easy for the auditors to be bullied by the people they're auditing. Now, that position was weakened in the public sector a bit when the Audit Commission was abolished, because they were the people that appointed audits. However, 98% of all local authorities opted to join in the sort of joint procurement arrangements with a body called Public Sector Audit Appointments, and they appointed our auditors, Ernst & Young, for a 5-year period from 18-19. They were already looking at the reappointment process from 2023, and auditors have to be in place before the start of the process, so it pulls it back quite a bit. They've sent out a sort of some consultation on that, and we will have to make a decision by January next year whether to go with public sector audit appointing our auditors again, or whether to strike out on our own and appoint our own auditors. There's more information on that promised in September, and I suggested to the Chair today that we put in an item for the committee in October so we can have a discussion on that. Somewhat frustratingly, the final decision apparently is reserved to full council, so we will have to take a recommendation through the full council, which adds an extra thing in it, and I can't imagine all 84 councillors want to debate the appointment of external audit, but apparently that's the rule, that's a statutory regulation, so we'll have to do that. But clearly, in the terms of reference you've got in your pack, liaison with the PSAA or appointing our external auditors is an item that's in the terms of reference for this committee. So we will need to do that here, and we will need to decide what to do. We'll need to think about that. There may be a need even to think about having some of that in private if we're having discussions about the performance of the external audit, etc., and commercial related discussions. So it will need a bit of logistical organising, but just a word that's going ahead. If we decide to go ahead with public sector audit appointments, they will then go through the commissioning process. They will determine the fees, and they will allocate auditors, and they do what they call a post office approach for auditing, where you get this, it costs the same to post a letter whether you're in the Western Isles of Scotland or right in the middle of London, when in reality the costs of delivery are very different between the two. But what they do is even out the cost of delivery across the country on audits. So they do that. They then determine the audit fees. And another issue that we will face is audit fees have reduced significantly since the Audit Commission was abolished, but they are now generally seen to be, and the Redmond Review said they are too low, and we will see upward pressures on audit fees as we go forward. So we've had fees going down and fixed for a significant period of time, and they will go upwards. And I anticipate the next round, whether we went ourselves or whether we went with PSAA, would see a significant increase in fees. The final point to make is that a lot of bodies now are really struggling to appoint auditors, or they're finding that when they go out to audit tenders, they're literally only getting the incumbent auditors being prepared to bid. Now, it might well be as a big, attractive metropolitan body, we actually could attract more than that. But if we were, a little district council out in the middle of somewhere, I'd certainly be saying we need public sector audit appointments to do this, because we'd never get anybody to bid for our audit otherwise. So the national audit regime at the moment is really struggling. They are really struggling to get enough auditors. They're having to hive off the consultancy bits and the internal audit bits from the external audit bits, and then nobody wants to do the external audit bits. So lot to go, but we will no doubt have to. It will be a significant area of focus for the committee over the next year or so as we decide what to do.
Right, anybody got any questions about that? I think that's a bit of a retread for the older members, the more long-serving members of the committee about the issues that we have been having with external audit, which are shared across the country, not just us. I'll say bring back the Audit Commission, but I know that it's not a popular word to say. So thank you very much, Dave, and we will accept Dave's report. And we move next to our final item, which is the work programme, which is over to you, Sarah.
Yes, Chair, this is just the new work programme for this year. So it's been populated for all the meetings that have been put in for the year. It is a live document, so we can move and change things as you see fit. So it's there for information and any comments or questions on it.
Gillian, I'd like to ask that the review of our standards procedures, which we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, if we could have that to our July meeting, please.
Yes, Chair, that's absolutely fine. What I was going to do, depending on capacity, I was wondering whether it was worth asking internal audit if they could do it on the process, which would help inform. So, depending on capacity, I think it might help inform the committee if we can get that look. So provided that fits within the timescales, is it all right, Chair, if we put it in provisionally for July, and then depending on the time it takes to do the audit, we could perhaps adjust at the next meeting? Is that okay? Thank you, Chair.
I would like it July, in as much as, because this has all taken so long, it would be good for us to know that we have one report that will be coming on time. Thank you. The other thing, I'm going to put it on this spot here, just because we don't do matters arising, but as long-standing members of the committee will know, we've been involved in looking at member development and training around the Code of Conduct, and we've had some initial feedback about member induction for the new members. David, did you go, or did you decide as a retread that you didn't want to go again?
No, I went. Well, I Zoomed. It was, which I think was one of the issues that I mean, I said in my comments, the problem is the council does so much and it's so detailed that even in 2 days you can only really scratch the surface. So as long as that induction just signposts you to the people that you need to talk to about issues, then that's great, but it is quite easy for new members to get distracted. And I just think, well, what we lost was nothing could be done about it, was an induction. It's nice to meet people and talk to people, and you couldn't do that by Zoom, so it was a little bit disappointing in that respect. But in terms of the issues covered and the level of information and the signposting, I thought it was I found it helpful.
Thank you. I did write to all the new members and just said, give me a flavour of what you thought. I think they felt that it was an awful lot of information to cram into 2 days. And I think that's always a problem. We're never quite sure. You want everybody to have all the information they need. And I don't think they necessarily realise how important or useful those things are until 6 months forward. So I was going to ask that, as well as, I will circulate to everybody a copy of the induction programme that we had for the new members. And also we've got stage 2, which is further development opportunities for the new members, which can also be refreshes for other members. And then there is the actual mandatory training, which is for planning, appeals and licensing and audit and standards members. I know that Angela and I have already, and Josie, we've been on the licensing training, the refresh stuff. And I think it's really important that members do recognise that it's not something you do once and you're done. It's something that we have to do continually in order to refresh and keep up with all the changes in local government. So there's also a stage 3 being proposed, which will have, if you like, more general skills-based stuff like personal safety for members when we're out and about, how we're going to do our locality working, more work on climate change, carbon zero. There's one here that says the Lord Mayor's Charity. That sounds an interesting one. Visits to the contact centre, meeting our media and comms people to find out how they work, all those things. Speed reading. I think somebody was asking me for that the other day. And use of social media, which I think we ought to make compulsory for all of our members, because as members of this committee know, those are the most complaints we seem to get about other members. So I think this is a good start, and I really hope that it's going to be something we're going to maintain not just this year, but throughout the years, in making sure that our members are as fully developed and trained as they can be, because if we're the leaders of the city, we owe it to the people of the city to be better than our best, if necessary. Anybody got any? Angela.
I think we've said it in a previous meeting, it would also be very important to have some kind of training around equality, diversity, anti-oppression. So I think it's very important, not just for staff, but for members as well.
Sorry, I think that's on the I was just digging bits out, so yes, it is part of it. And if anybody's got any suggestions, because I know sometimes there are things, I was just talking to sort of new members about the way we do things, and it always just seems to us already, we're so institutionalised, we do things in a certain way because that's how it's always done. And to have the new members say, what on earth are we doing this for? I think is always a refreshing thing to have. Angela.
All right, I've just thought about something else. One of the best training that I did as a new member, but it wasn't offered by the council, was about public speaking and how to get your message in 2 minutes, because that's the time that we have to speak 2 or 3 minutes. So that would be useful.
To say something, Simon. Go on. Go on then. Oh, what? Go on, be polite.
Apologies. And so when I was thinking just about the diversity training, I just did that, I think, quite recently, a few weeks ago, which was an e-learning. So it's certainly there. I think the thing is, it's getting our colleagues to do it. I was talking to them specifically, about kind of the work of the audit committee and our group the other day, and it was difficult to judge the level of enthusiasm over Zoom. But when I next see them in person, I shall try and rev up the enthusiasm somewhat. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we also, all the e-learning modules that are available for all of our staff, they're all available, I believe, for members as well. So that might be something to circulate to members, because people have different ways of learning, and it may be something that you can do at times that, coming in to actually do induction might be more, or other training might be more difficult. Sorry, Gillian.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I believe all those courses are available to you on the members' shared area on your 365 platform, so you should be able to access them already. Could I just indulge by suggesting, sorry, do you want to come back? You're right, okay. In just suggesting that, just reminding committee and also updating committee on the proposals for the forthcoming year with regard to member training. So as well as what you've got in front of you, Chair, we have also got the arrangements with the Local Government Association where they have given us a year worth of training just to, in order to support any governance needs and transitional needs that we may need. So we are trying to use that to its fullest, working out a programme at the moment with the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny, because as members know, we've got a year where we have to get ready and transition to a committee system. So I would suspect that you will hear about member development probably on a weekly basis this year. There will be lots of it because we'll all need it, officers will need it as well. But the initial piece of work I've asked the LGA to do is to come to you in your groups and ask you what you think you need. So that, as far as I'm aware, I don't think those dates have been forthcoming from the groups as yet. So if there's anything you can do to help us get those dates in the diary with the LGA, that'd be really helpful. Thank you. Sorry, Sarah, are you coordinating that? Is Abby? Or
It's Abby at the moment.
Abby Brownsword's coordinating. Thank you.
I believe that the Labour group is having its first tranche of that on the 25th of July.
My apologies then.
Ben.
Yeah, possibly a slight plug for something I was sorting out. So when I was chair of the Safer and Stronger Communities Scrutiny Board, we had engaged with the Board of Deputies to do anti-Semitism training for all councillors. That got scrapped because of COVID, and then the committee was scrapped, so I'm no longer chair of it. So if we can offer that, I can give you all the contacts if you want to put that into the more general member development programme.
Thank you. Anybody else? No. So with that, can we please agree the programme of work for our committee in the coming months? Is that, yep. And that's the end of this first meeting of the year. Thank you all very much. I'm really pleased that so many people have come back. And I'm glad that we have enthusiastic new members as well, because as everybody knows, Audit is the best committee at this council. Okay, thank you everybody.